You weren't supposed to see this video, or so you thought. Maybe you were just casually scrolling through your feed, mind half asleep, attention flickering from one meaningless thumbnail to another, expecting more of the same recycled noise. And then, this one. It didn't shout. It didn't sparkle. It felt quiet, unassuming, and yet something about it whispered directly to you. Strange, isn't it? That in a sea of clickbait, something subtle is what grabs you. As if it knew. As if it had been waiting. What if that's not your imagination? What if that eerie, almost imperceptible pull wasn't just another algorithmic fluke, but an echo from something larger, older, and far more intelligent than any machine? You might feel a flicker of skepticism, maybe even irritation. Another mystical video claiming to reveal the secrets of the universe. You've seen 100 of them, heard the same tired mantras, half listened to New Age promises that never quite delivered. Maybe a part of you has already become numb. Numb to wonder. Numb to mystery. Numb to yourself. That's understandable. We live in a world where wonder has been reduced to click rates and monetized spectacle, where mystery is something to be branded, boxed, and sold. But beneath that cynicism, yes, even yours, there's still a spark. It's the part of you that just paused. That's still listening. That spark remembers. And whether you believe in fate or not, that part of you might already know, this isn't random. You didn't find this video. This video found you. And that alone should stop you cold. What if I told you that behind every random moment, every so-called coincidence, there's a structure, a law, a rhythm, that there are principles hidden in plain sight, ancient laws that shape the movement of stars and the spiral of your own thoughts? Not religious dogma, not trendy affirmations, not vague spiritual fluff, but real, defined, esoteric architecture. Rules so powerful that civilizations once rose and fell based on how well they honored them, or didn't. Laws that operate whether you know about them or not. Just like gravity, just like light. The Kybalion, the ancient text we're about to explore, is not a prophecy, a cult, or a belief system. It's a manual, a field guide, a set of instructions written for those brave enough to peel back the illusion and look reality dead in the eye. Not the convenient, comforting version. The raw version. The version that shocks you, disorients you, makes you feel both infinite and insignificant all at once. Because that's what truth does. It doesn't stroke your ego. It burns it. The Kybalion was published in 1908, but its roots trace back to Hermeticism, teachings that go so far back they blur the lines between history and myth. Hermes Trismegistus, the legendary source of this wisdom, is said to be a fusion of the Egyptian god Thoth and the Greek god Hermes. But maybe the label doesn't matter. Maybe the real identity of the teacher is irrelevant. What matters is that the teaching remains. And it has. In fragments. In symbols. In whispers. Preserved for those ready to see. Because here's the uncomfortable truth. Most people aren't ready. They don't want to question the fabric of reality. They want to survive. They want comfort. They want to be told what to do. That's not a judgment. It's an observation. Awakening is terrifying. It means giving up the illusion of control. It means realizing you've been walking through a dream thinking it was solid ground. And that's why this knowledge has been hidden, not because it's elitist, but because it's volatile. Power in unsteady hands is dangerous. The ancients knew that. And perhaps you're sensing it now, that queasy, buzzing discomfort rising in your chest. That's not fear. That's recognition. Somewhere deep inside, you remember this. You just forgot. That's what this journey is about, remembering. And it starts here, with 7 laws. 7 Hermetic principles. 7 keys that unlock not just the mechanics of the universe, but the architecture of your own mind. You'll hear phrases like, the all is mind, and as above, so below, and maybe you'll think they sound poetic or cryptic. But they're not meant to impress you. They're meant to activate you. Each law is a lens, a way of seeing. And once seen, you cannot unsee. But before we dive in, let's pause. Let's acknowledge something most people never say in videos like this. You might not like what you find. You might reject it, scoff at it, feel nothing. And that's okay. You're allowed to feel indifferent, to feel cold, to feel like this is just another voice in the void. That's part of the process. Not every awakening starts with lightning. Some start with boredom. Some start with disgust. A subtle revulsion at the hollowness of modern life, the sameness of your routine, the dull ache that comes from living without purpose. If that's what brought you here, good. That emotion, flat, gray, quiet, is still a doorway. And perhaps this video is your key. Not because I have the answers, but because the answers were always inside you, waiting for the right question. So here it is. What if everything you know about reality is incomplete? What if you've been living inside a version of the world designed to keep you asleep and something, call it the universe, call it divine intelligence, call it coincidence, has just nudged you toward the edge of that dream? What happens next isn't about me. It's about you. Will you keep scrolling, numb and detached? Or will you listen, really listen, to what's been whispering beneath the noise all along? Because if you do, I promise you this, something will shift. Maybe not today, maybe not with fireworks, but something will click into place. A pattern will emerge, and for the first time, you'll begin to see, not just with your eyes, but with your being. Welcome to the beginning. The Kybalion isn't just a book. It's an initiation. And the fact that you're still here means something in you is ready. Ready to unlearn. Ready to remember. Ready to reawaken. The path ahead won't always feel comfortable, but it will feel real. And in a world built on illusions, that's more than enough. It hurts, doesn't it? That gnawing feeling that maybe, just maybe, you've been lied to your entire life. That the world, for all its structures and systems and promises, has handed you a watered-down version of reality. You went to school, followed the rules, trusted the experts, and somewhere deep inside, you expected that one day it would all make sense. That someone would hand you the blueprint, the key, the real story of how things work. But it never came. And the more you asked, the more they told you to stop questioning, to stay quiet, to trust the system. But here's the truth no one admits out loud. You've been sold a story that was never meant to empower you. You've been trained to function, not to awaken. Somewhere along the way, the sacred was stripped from life, and in its place, we were given noise, endless distractions, empty ambitions, shallow entertainment, all designed to numb the ache of something missing. That ache you feel? That's not weakness. That's not failure. That's the memory of something ancient stirring inside you. A sense that reality is supposed to be more than bills, deadlines, arguments, and fleeting pleasures. That maybe you're not just a cog in the machine, but a creator who forgot their own power. And that's where the Kybalion comes in, not as some trendy philosophy, but as a lifeline tossed across centuries of suppression. When the three initiates published it in 1908, they didn't do it for fame. They didn't even sign their names. Because what they were reviving was dangerous, not in the way fire is dangerous to a house, but in the way truth is dangerous to a lie. The Kybalion is the distilled essence of Hermetic wisdom, knowledge so old it was already ancient when the pyramids were young. It comes from Hermes Trismegistus, the mythical fusion of the Egyptian god Thoth and the Greek god Hermes, a being said to have mastered not only the laws of the universe but the laws of consciousness itself. Think about that. A figure who bridged gods and humans, who wasn't worshipped blindly but studied deeply. His teachings weren't dogma, they were tools. And those tools have been buried, diluted, twisted, or outright erased by empires, religions, and ideologies who feared what would happen if ordinary people discovered they were never ordinary to begin with. Let that sink in. For thousands of years, the most powerful truths about reality have been hidden in plain sight, veiled behind symbols, myths, and secret rituals, not to mock you, but to protect you. Because this knowledge isn't soft. It doesn't comfort. It disrupts. It shatters. And those who aren't ready to face that often weaponize their fear, calling it heresy, madness, or worse. That's what happened to the Hermetic tradition. Over time, it became a ghost, whispered among mystics, hunted by inquisitions, preserved only in fragments. And now, over a century after the Kybalion's publication, most people still don't know it exists. Isn't that tragic? Isn't it infuriating? That in a world drowning in self-help books, motivational speakers, and spiritual trends, the one text that offers a clear, structured, timeless framework for understanding reality is ignored. Forgotten. Because it dares to say something radical, that you are not a victim, that you are not powerless, that you are, in fact, a participant in the great game of creation, and your thoughts, emotions, and vibrations shape the very fabric of your experience. But here's the cruel twist. Most of us hear this and feel worse, not better. Because once you realize you're not just reacting to life, but creating it, you're forced to confront the mess you're living in. And that's when the sadness hits. The regret. The realization that you've been feeding the very cycles that kept you stuck. Maybe you've settled for less than you deserve. Maybe you've betrayed your own dreams. Maybe you've silenced your voice so many times you don't even recognize it anymore. And the worst part? No one told you you had a choice. They told you to be realistic, to stop dreaming, to lower your standards, to pick stability over wonder. And now here you are, staring down the truth you were never supposed to find. That hurts. And it should, because grief is part of awakening. You grieve the years you lost, the lies you believed, the self you abandoned. And beneath that grief, rage. Not the loud, explosive kind, but the quiet bitterness that comes from knowing you were never broken, just misled. That you could have thrived, but you were taught to survive. That you could have created magic, but you were taught to chase money. That you could have listened to your soul, but you were taught to obey. That rage is sacred. It's not something to suppress. It's something to transmute. Because once you felt it, really felt it, you can no longer tolerate mediocrity. You can no longer pretend you're powerless. And that's when the Kybalion becomes more than a book. It becomes a weapon, not against others, but against the lies that once caged you. Its 7 principles aren't abstract ideas. They're laws. Immutable, universal, unchanging. They govern the unseen architecture of existence, and once you understand them, you can't help but see the patterns everywhere. In your relationships, your habits, your emotions, your outcomes. It's like learning to read a language that was always there but never translated. And once you speak it fluently, you begin to rewrite your story. But here's the hard truth. The Kybalion isn't easy. It doesn't hold your hand. It doesn't flatter your ego. It asks you to grow up, to take radical responsibility for your energy, your thoughts, your vibration. And that can be brutal, because now there's no one left to blame. Not your parents, not your boss, not society, just you. And while that realization can feel like a gut punch, it's also the beginning of real freedom. Because if you created the cage, you can dismantle it. If you wrote the script, you can change it. If you built the illusion, you can wake up. But only if you're honest. Only if you're willing to sit with the discomfort, to feel the sadness, to feel the anger, to let it wash over you, break you open, and clear the way for something new. That's what initiation feels like. Not a ceremony, but a reckoning. And you're in it now. The fact that you're still here, still listening, still breathing through the weight of this truth, that means you're ready. Not perfect, not enlightened, just willing. Willing to see, willing to feel, willing to unlearn. And that willingness? That's the beginning of everything. So take a breath. Let the disappointment rise. Let the resentment surface. Don't push it away. Let it fuel your next step. Because the 7 Hermetic laws are not here to comfort you. They're here to liberate you. And liberation doesn't come cheap. It costs you every illusion you've ever clung to. But in return, it gives you the one thing no one can take away, the knowledge that you are the universe, dreaming itself awake. What if the most magical truth about the universe is also the most overlooked? What if the power you've been searching for in books, mentors, rituals, and systems has been quietly living inside you all along? Hidden not because it's complicated, but because it's so simple it almost feels like a joke. That's the joyful absurdity of the first Hermetic principle, mentalism. The idea that everything, and I mean everything, begins in the mind. Not just your mind. Not just the collective mind of humanity, but the mind, capital T, capital M, the infinite source, the boundless intelligence, the divine consciousness from which all things emerge. The all is mind, the universe is mental. At first glance, it sounds poetic, maybe even cryptic, but the more you sit with it, the more astonishing it becomes. This isn't metaphor. This is mechanics. It means that every single thing in existence, from the swirling galaxies to the cells in your body, from the events unfolding in your life to the emotions flickering through your heart, first existed as a thought. Not necessarily your thought, but a thought nonetheless. Everything is born from an idea. Every chair, every city, every movement, every miracle. And here's the part that fills you with both awe and delight. If reality is a thought form, then your thoughts are not passive. They are generative. They are creators. They are tools. And when you understand this, not just in theory, but in your bones, you begin to approach life differently. You stop chasing things on the outside and start working with the canvas of your own consciousness. You realize you're not just reacting to a pre-made world, you're actively transmitting into it. And once that truth clicks, everything begins to sparkle with potential. Suddenly, the mundane feels mystical. The thoughts you once dismissed as harmless background noise begin to shimmer with creative power. And the best part? You don't have to wait. You don't have to be enlightened. You don't have to meditate for 10 years on a mountain. You can begin today, right now. All it takes is awareness. Think about this. How many times have you talked yourself out of a dream because you believed it was too unrealistic? How many times have you replayed the same limiting narrative in your head? I'm not smart enough. I'll always be stuck. It's too late for me, without realizing that those thoughts weren't just passing through you, they were building your future. That's the hidden tragedy and the hidden magic of this principle. Your inner world is the blueprint for your outer world. And that's not just philosophy, it's physics, it's biology, it's energy. Your neural pathways fire based on your beliefs. Your body responds to your thoughts with chemicals, hormones, postures. Your energy field shifts with every emotion. And reality? It bends in response to all of it. Not instantly, not always in ways you expect, but unfailingly. Life is not happening to you. It's happening through you. And when you meet that truth not with fear but with joy, with wide-eyed delight, you begin to play. That's right, play. Because once you know the rules, you're free to experiment, to imagine boldly, to shift thoughts not out of fear but curiosity. What would happen if I chose to believe in myself today? What would happen if I acted as if life is conspiring in my favor? What would happen if I treated every setback as feedback and every doubt as an invitation to deepen my clarity? It's not naive, it's powerful. Joy is powerful. Wonder is powerful. They are frequencies, and frequencies shape form. Let me tell you about someone who lived this. A woman named Sarah. She was stuck, trapped in a loop of low-paying jobs, broken relationships, and constant disappointment. But not because she was lazy or incapable. It was because, without realizing it, she had rehearsed one thought for years: I'm unlucky. That belief wasn't just an idea. It was a filter through which she interpreted everything. A job rejection? Of course, I'm unlucky. A bad date? Figures. I never catch a break. That single belief colored her reality like a lens. And as long as it stayed, nothing outside could really change. But something shifted. One day, instead of numbing out or venting, she paused. She challenged the script. she began visualizing something different. Not just the outcome she wanted, but the version of herself who deserved them. Every morning, she wrote one empowering sentence: "I am worthy of a life I love." It didn't feel true at first. It felt silly, but she kept going. She did it not because she was pretending, but because she was retraining the vibration of her mind. Within months, she didn't just feel better, her life changed. She got a job offer out of the blue. She met new friends who uplifted her. She found herself laughing again, dreaming again. Coincidence? That's mentalism. That's the ripple effect of consciousness. And the most beautiful part is, Sarah didn't discover something rare. She remembered something universal, something that belongs to you just as much as it belongs to her. You are doing it right now. With every thought, every expectation, every belief. You are sculpting the invisible clay of your life. You don't need to be perfect. You don't need to force yourself into fake positivity. But you do need to become conscious, to become curious, to ask, what am I planting with this thought? Because every thought is a seed. Plant enough seeds of doubt, and you'll walk through a forest of barriers. Plant enough seeds of faith, and life begins to blossom in ways you couldn't predict. This isn't about denial. It's about direction. You still face challenges. You still meet pain. But now, you understand that your interpretation of those moments carries energy. That energy moves outward. It returns in form. That's why your mind isn't just a place for daydreams. It's your workshop, your studio, your temple. And you are the artist, the creator, the initiate. You were never meant to live by default. You were meant to design. And that doesn't mean you control everything. It means you influence everything. You participate in everything. And with joy, that participation becomes sacred. Because what's more beautiful than realizing your thoughts are alive? That they are emissaries, messengers, architects? You get to choose them. You get to love them. You get to change them. And in doing so, you change your reality. So here's something you can try today. Not because you have to, but because it's fun. For just one day, carry a notebook or open a notes app and track your inner dialogue. Every time you catch yourself thinking something negative or limiting, pause. Write it down. Then challenge it. Replace it. Instead of, "I'm failing," try, "I'm figuring it out." Instead of, "This is impossible," try, "This is stretching me." It's not about pretending things are easy. It's about choosing the frame. And the frame you choose determines the picture you see. That's not wishful thinking. That's mentalism. That's the first Hermetic key. And once you hold it, life stops feeling random and starts feeling responsive. The universe stops feeling silent and starts feeling alive. And maybe, just maybe, you start to feel something you haven't felt in years. Excited. Excited to wake up. Excited to explore. Excited to co-create with a world that's always been listening. Not because you finally figured it out, but because you finally remembered what was always true. Your mind is not a prison. It is a portal. And the moment you walk through it with joy and wonder in your heart, everything begins to unfold. They say the unknown is what terrifies us most. Not because it's dangerous, but because it reflects the vastness of what we don't control. Deep within that fear is the silent admission that no matter how much we think we know, we're still fumbling in the dark, reaching for something stable in a world of shifting shadows. This fear isn't just about survival. It's the existential kind, the fear that whispers late at night when all the lights are off and your mind starts asking questions it doesn't know how to answer. What if none of this means anything? What if everything I've believed is wrong? What if I'm just a flicker, forgotten the moment I fade out? These are not easy questions, but the Kybalion doesn't flinch in the face of them. Instead, it brings them into the light of the principle of polarity, a law that tells us everything has its opposite: light and dark, joy and sorrow, confidence and fear. The Kybalion says, opposites are identical in nature but different in degree. That may sound abstract at first, even cold. But when you're lost in fear or grief, this principle becomes a strange kind of comfort. Because if fear and courage are the same in nature, just vibrating at different levels, then what you're feeling isn't permanent. It's a frequency you can shift. You're not broken. You're just tuned to a darker wavelength, for now. The principle of polarity says the pendulum swings, and with it, your reality can swing too. That's the silent hope buried within the fear, that the pain is part of a process, that nothing stays fixed. But this also means your most cherished beliefs might dissolve under scrutiny, that what you've anchored yourself to, your idea of self, of truth, of God, may not survive the polarity swing. And that's terrifying. This isn't the kind of fear you escape by running. It's the kind that asks you to sit still and witness your illusions unravel. It demands courage not to fight, but to allow. To let yourself be taken apart by truth, trusting that what remains will be more aligned, more honest. And sometimes that process feels like grief, because letting go of illusions isn't just freeing, it's heartbreaking. You mourn the old self, the old certainty, the comfort of ignorance. You begin to see how much of your life was built on beliefs you never questioned, routines that numbed the deeper ache, systems that kept you distracted from your inner world. The principle of rhythm teaches us that everything moves in cycles. So the grief isn't a mistake. It's not a detour. It's part of the rhythm of awakening. Just as the tides rise and fall, so do your emotions, your beliefs, your identity. But here's the secret. The more you resist the downward swing, the more power it has over you. Fear grows in the shadow of resistance. Grief festers when denied. The Kybalion doesn't tell you to avoid sorrow or fear. It teaches you to observe them, to understand that every descent contains the seed of ascent, that every breakdown is a doorway to breakthrough. And yet, when you're in the thick of it, when your chest feels hollow and your purpose dissolves into fog, philosophy can feel like a distant star, visible but unreachable. That's why this part of the Kybalion's wisdom isn't about theory. It's about presence, about sitting with your fear without letting it define you, about allowing the sadness to wash through you without drowning in it. It's about becoming the observer, not the emotion. And that shift, subtle as it may seem, is where true power begins. The principle of vibration reminds us that all is in motion. Nothing is ever truly still. That includes your fear. It may feel overwhelming, but it is not fixed. It moves. And because it moves, it can be shifted. This isn't spiritual bypassing. It's spiritual precision. You're not pretending the darkness isn't real. You're learning to navigate it with clarity. You start to recognize the texture of your own emotional landscape. You notice how your thoughts, your breath, your posture, all affect your vibration. And gradually, you stop feeling like a victim of fear and start seeing yourself as an alchemist of energy. Not by force, but by understanding, by subtle shifts, by awareness. Fear and sadness become teachers, not enemies. They point to the parts of you that are still clinging, still resisting the truth of impermanence. They ask, what are you so afraid to lose? What part of yourself are you unwilling to let die? These aren't rhetorical questions. They're invitations to deeper inquiry. The law of correspondence says, as above, so below, as within, so without. So if the world feels threatening, if the future feels uncertain, perhaps it's because your inner world is full of unspoken grief, unresolved fear. The external chaos mirrors the internal conflict. And once you realize that, you stop trying to fix the world out there. You start by tending to the world within. You start by listening to your fear, to your sadness, to the quiet voice beneath them both that still believes something beautiful is possible. That voice may be small at first, barely audible beneath the noise. But it's persistent. It knows that fear is not the end. It's the beginning of courage. It knows that grief is not a curse. It's the price of growth. The Kybalion doesn't offer easy answers. It offers a mirror. And what you see in that mirror, no matter how dark, is sacred. Because it's real. It's you, stripped of masks. You, before the world told you who to be. And maybe that's why this knowledge has been hidden, veiled in symbols and riddles. Because real transformation doesn't happen in the spotlight. It happens in the shadows, where you're willing to face what hurts without turning away. It happens in the quiet decision to keep going, even when the path disappears beneath your feet. It happens when you stop asking the universe to remove your fear and start asking what your fear is trying to teach you. And then, something shifts. Not all at once, but gradually. The fear becomes less sharp. The sadness becomes less suffocating. You begin to sense a rhythm behind the chaos, a pattern beneath the pain. And in that pattern, you begin to trust. Not in certainty, but in motion, in the swing of the pendulum, in the truth that this too shall pass, and something new will rise in its place. What if beneath the surface of every event, every decision, and every emotion, there was a current, a silent, invisible stream that shaped the movement of reality without needing your conscious permission? This is the realm of the law of cause and effect, the Kybalion's profound assertion that nothing in the universe happens by chance. In a world that often feels chaotic and unpredictable, this Hermetic principle offers not only comfort but clarity. It tells you that every cause has its effect, and every effect has its root cause, whether visible or not. Once you truly grasp this, the randomness of life begins to dissolve. The idea that things just happen becomes a relic of reactive thinking. Instead, life starts to feel like a beautifully structured equation where every thought, feeling, and action sends a ripple outward into the vast ocean of potential outcomes. You begin to trust that your past wasn't a mistake. It was an equation unfolding. You start to anticipate the future not with fear, but with a quiet sense of design. In this light, even the most painful moments become messengers, revealing the hidden mathematics behind your present condition. They are not punishments, but reflections, mirrors showing you the logic of your inner world projected outward. Most people don't want to hear this. They want to believe that bad things are anomalies, that good fortune is luck. But Hermetic wisdom challenges this. It asks you to take radical responsibility, not just for your choices, but for your frequency, your energy, your hidden motivations. Cause and effect is not merely about physical events, but about vibrations. You vibrate in a particular frequency, and reality echoes back that signal in people, events, and even obstacles. It's not karma in the sense of cosmic punishment. It's more immediate, more exacting. If you hold fear long enough, life responds with things that validate that fear. If you project love or confidence consistently, the world reorganizes to reflect that vibration. You can't escape it, but you can learn to work with it. That's the key. Most people react. They live downstream from their own causes, confused about why certain patterns keep returning. But the initiate, the one who studies these Hermetic truths, learns to live upstream. They trace the effect back to its cause and make corrections not in the outer world, but in the inner one. And that is a powerful shift. Suddenly, healing doesn't just mean getting over something. It means becoming the new cause of something better. It means anticipating your future with faith because you trust the seeds you're planting now. This law isn't a tool to manipulate the world, but to co-create with it. It doesn't care if your actions are small or monumental, it simply responds. You can whisper a belief and reality will echo it. You can quietly expect betrayal, and it will somehow find you. But the beauty is that you can also expect peace, alignment, or joy, and if you stay in that vibration, the law must obey. Imagine walking through life knowing that nothing is wasted, that even the worst days are instructive, precise, mathematical in their unfolding. You stop panicking when things fall apart because you understand that every crumbling is a reflection of something you once held, and every rebuilding is your new frequency being honored. It doesn't mean life becomes perfect, but it becomes clear. You stop blaming others, not because they didn't hurt you, but because you're done giving away your creative power. This law gives it back. You become the architect. But here's where trust becomes vital. If you doubt yourself, the law reflects that. If you hesitate, so does the world. It's not cruel, it's just exact. It mirrors your interior with such honesty that it can feel brutal, especially when you're still learning. But if you stay with it, if you meet each challenge with curiosity instead of self-judgment, something incredible happens. You begin to anticipate your own growth. You see the link between what you believe and what unfolds. It's no longer mysterious, it's magnificent. Patterns don't haunt you anymore, they guide you. Every repeated scenario becomes a doorway to mastery. Every conflict becomes a compass pointing to an unresolved cause you can now transform. And that's the invitation of this Hermetic truth. Not to escape life, but to decode it. To live not as a victim of fate, but as a steward of vibration. To trust that even when you can't see it yet, the causes you plant today are already shaping a future that matches them. Your inner world is not a private garden, it's a broadcast tower. You're not just feeling emotions, you're announcing them to the universe. And the universe, by law, must respond. This is not magic, it's mechanics. Divine mechanics. That's what the Kybalion reveals when it speaks of this law. And when you let that realization settle, something extraordinary happens. You stop waiting for signs, you become one. You stop chasing miracles, you embody them. Because when you align your thoughts, emotions, and actions to a coherent frequency, you become the cause. Not just in your own life, but in the collective field. And that is where your true power begins. The shift is not loud, but it is seismic. You begin to expect alignment, and so it finds you. You begin to trust yourself, and reality responds. Not overnight, not always as you imagined, but always in harmony with your vibration. This is why anticipation is sacred. It's not wishful thinking, it's energetic readiness. When you anticipate truth, truth unfolds. When you anticipate chaos, chaos obliges. The universe doesn't discriminate, it delivers. So, what are you expecting? What seeds are you planting, not just with your actions, but with your inner frequency? You don't need to be perfect, you need to be conscious. That's what this law invites. The courage to look at your life not as a list of failures or successes, but as feedback. And the trust to know that change doesn't come from force, it comes from frequency. You don't chase new outcomes, you become new causes. And in doing so, you realign with the sacred rhythm of the cosmos. You are no longer thrown about by invisible forces, you become one. And that, more than anything, is what the ancient Hermeticists meant when they said, as within, so without. If the universe is a grand symphony of forces, then balance is its most sacred rhythm. And yet, to walk the path of balance often ignites a strange fire inside us. A sharp frustration that comes not from failure but from restraint. We live in a world obsessed with extremes. Push harder, win bigger, dominate louder. But the Kybalion whispers of another way, the law of polarity. Everything has its pair of opposites, light and dark, hot and cold, success and failure. But opposites are not enemies. They are merely two ends of the same spectrum. The law teaches that through understanding one pole, we gain power over both. The mistake we make is assuming that to conquer the dark, we must destroy it. Instead, the law of polarity asks us to feel the rage, the resentment, the burning irritation of our shadows, not to reject them, but to understand them, to dance with them until the heat becomes clarity. That friction we feel? It's not a sign of misalignment. It's a sacred pressure, like the grind of two stones sharpening a blade. Without polarity, without tension, growth would be impossible. This is the hidden secret of true power. It's not the absence of struggle, but the conscious dance within it. Real mastery means holding both peace and fury in the same hand and choosing neither until the moment demands it. But how often do we let resentment build instead, silently fuming at the world for its injustices, its failures to be fair, its refusal to bend to our plans? That fire within, if left untamed, becomes bitterness. But if we lean into it, if we ride the heat and understand its language, it becomes propulsion. We stop trying to destroy our opposition and instead transmute it. In the Hermetic sense, the highest form of alchemy isn't lead into gold. It's conflict into power. Through the lens of polarity, we see that every experience, no matter how harsh or unfair, contains its opposite hidden within it. The betrayal contains the seed of loyalty. The failure holds the blueprint of future mastery. The anger masks a deeper yearning for justice, for order, for meaning. And once we stop reacting blindly and start responding intentionally, we gain access to that hidden seed. We don't need to suppress our fire. We need to steer it. Because the moment we master the law of polarity, we are no longer tossed between emotional extremes. We become the fulcrum. We become the center that chooses direction. And from that center, all change flows. This law doesn't ask us to be passive or soft. On the contrary, it demands the boldness to look into our anger and see what's really there. That's why this path can feel hostile. Not because the world is cruel, but because it reflects our internal chaos. When you feel resentment rising, ask not, "Who wronged me?" but "What does this reveal?" When you feel rage tightening in your chest, ask not, "How do I release this?" but "What is this pointing toward?" Every emotional charge is a compass. The polarity is not the enemy, it's the map. And once you realize that, frustration becomes fuel, resentment becomes information, hostility becomes a mirror, and suddenly, the storm you once feared becomes the wind at your back. You're no longer trying to fight your way forward, you're learning to glide with precision, balance, and force. You're not just alive. You're aligned with the deeper pulse of the universe, wielding polarity not as a curse, but as your sharpest tool. We often find ourselves staring at the wreckage of our choices, wondering how we arrived at such a place. It's tempting to believe that life happens to us, that misfortune knocks on our door at random, that betrayal, failure, or pain are the works of an indifferent universe. But the Kybalion whispers otherwise. It speaks of a solemn truth, a truth many of us are too afraid to face. The law of cause and effect says that nothing escapes order. Every action has a consequence. Every thought sets a chain reaction in motion. In this law, there is no accident, only causation. And yet, how painful it is to confront that we might have authored our own suffering. This isn't to place blame, it's to awaken responsibility. The ache we feel when life feels unfair is real. The fear that we are powerless, that we are being punished, is human. But the deeper truth is more liberating, even if it stings at first. We are not pawns. We are players. And though we have made mistakes, those mistakes are not final sentences. They are beginnings. Just as a seed falls because of gravity, it also falls into soil where it may grow. Every fall is a motion that leads somewhere. When we grieve over lost time, over opportunities squandered, over things we said we wish we hadn't, we must remember that grief itself is a signal, an invitation to realign with intention. Most of us were raised in systems that taught us to obey, to be reactive, to fit into roles already carved out for us. So we did what we could with what we knew. But when we learn this Hermetic law, we reclaim our authorship. We begin to understand that the life we're living is not random. It is sculpted, often unconsciously, by the energy we emit, the choices we repeat, and the beliefs we fail to challenge. There's an ache in realizing that the suffering we've experienced is part of a loop, a karmic cycle not imposed on us by wrathful gods, but by our own energetic signatures left unexamined. Yet in that ache is also the doorway to power. Power not to dominate, but to choose again. Every thought you correct is a seed planted for peace. Every emotional trigger you face with compassion disrupts the chain. Every act of forgiveness, even the bitter ones, shifts you to a new causal timeline. In the realm of Hermetic wisdom, you are never a helpless being waiting to be rescued. You are the rescuer. You are the initiator. And in this difficult but sacred realization, there is a strange kind of mourning. The mourning of your old self, the victim self who wanted so badly to be saved. But with that mourning comes a quiet kind of strength. You begin to see how even your wounds have momentum. How the heartbreak that once broke you now serves as the catalyst for your awakening. There is pain in this awakening, but it is a noble pain. The kind that rebuilds you from the inside out. You begin to live more consciously, not because you are trying to be perfect, but because you no longer wish to sleepwalk through life. You understand that if you want peace, you must become its cause. If you want love, you must emit its frequency. If you want freedom, you must sever the patterns that keep you enslaved. The law of cause and effect is not meant to frighten, it's meant to free. But freedom requires responsibility, and responsibility requires the courage to grieve the old way of being. That's why this law cuts so deep, because it asks you to stop pointing outward and start looking inward. Not to shame yourself, but to reclaim your power. This is the essence of spiritual maturity. The moment you stop saying, "Why is this happening to me?" and start asking, "What energy am I contributing to this experience?" is the moment you step out of the spiral of unconscious repetition and into the spiral of conscious creation. And though it may feel like loss, it is in truth the beginning of everything new. There comes a moment on the path of the seeker when words no longer suffice, when even the most sacred texts are no longer read but lived, and when teachings are no longer studied but embodied. This is the realm where the Kybalion ceases to be a book and becomes a frequency, a living rhythm vibrating through every breath, thought, and action of one who has aligned with the universe. To reach this stage is not about memorizing all 7 Hermetic principles, nor about debating their meanings or theorizing their applications. It is about becoming them effortlessly, faithfully, silently. For true mastery is quiet. It does not announce itself, demand recognition, or ask for applause. It is content to move like the wind, unseen but deeply felt. And the one who lives in harmony with these laws becomes like the wind, too, strong, invisible, and free. By now, the initiate has come far. They have danced with mentalism, surrendered to correspondence, floated with vibration, aligned with polarity, moved with rhythm, balanced with cause and effect, and risen above the illusion of gender. But here, at the end, or perhaps the beginning, comes the ultimate integration, the surrender of the self into something greater. The wisdom no longer belongs to you. It moves through you. You become the channel, the vessel, the flute through which the universe plays its melody. And what does this look like in practice? It looks like peace. Not the absence of chaos, but the presence of deep trust even when chaos surrounds you. It looks like grounded joy, not the fleeting high of external success, but the steady warmth of knowing you are in flow with something infinitely wise. It looks like compassion, patience, clarity, and effortless creation. You no longer chase manifestations. You magnetize them. You no longer question your worth. You radiate it. This is the secret of the silent adepts, the mystics who walk among us unnoticed, transforming the world not with force, but with presence. Their power lies not in their knowledge, but in their being. And that is what the Kybalion has been guiding you toward from the very first line. To become a being of wisdom, not merely a student of it. You are not here to collect truths like rare gems. You are here to become a living jewel. One that shines in alignment with the divine order of things. As you embody this, something extraordinary happens. Your intuition becomes sharp and swift. You begin to sense patterns where others see problems. You feel the pulse of life in everything, the breeze on your skin, the timing of events, the words left unsaid. Nothing is random anymore. Life becomes a dialogue, a sacred conversation between you and the all. And in this dialogue, you are both student and co-creator. You ask and receive, intend and attract, listen and respond. You become a mirror to the universe, reflecting its laws with quiet precision. Even when storms come, and they will, you stand unmoved. Not because you are indifferent, but because you are centered. You understand that rhythm brings ebb and flow, that polarity turns sorrow into sweetness, and that behind every event, cause and effect are at play. So you do not resist. You harmonize. You remember, there is a serenity in this stage that cannot be faked. It is the kind of serenity that makes others feel calm in your presence, even when you say nothing. It's the kind of peace that people mistake for luck, not realizing it comes from deep alignment. You walk with the poise of one who has seen behind the curtain and knows that the show, however chaotic, is in perfect order. But the journey does not end here. For with great inner power comes great responsibility, not in the heavy, burdensome sense, but in the joyous recognition that you are now part of something much larger than yourself. You are no longer a separate entity trying to survive in a hostile world. You are an extension of the divine mind, an agent of harmony, a thread in the grand tapestry of existence. And so you become a bridge between the seen and unseen, between ancient truths and modern confusion, between despair and hope. You do not need to convince anyone of the truth. Your life becomes the evidence. Your peace becomes the proof. You teach not by speaking louder, but by living truer. You walk into a room and shift its frequency. You speak with such grounded clarity that lies cannot survive in your presence. You create art, build businesses, raise children, or simply breathe, and all of it becomes sacred. That is the true gift of Hermetic wisdom. It doesn't take you out of the world. It lets you re-enter the world transformed. It doesn't make you superior. It makes you useful. And usefulness, in the highest spiritual sense, is divine. So now, as this journey through the Kybalion concludes, the real journey begins. Because now you are ready to walk as a silent master, ready to serve without ego, ready to transmit without effort. You no longer need to explain the Hermetic laws. You are the Hermetic laws. And those who are meant to find you, those who are ready to awaken, will feel it. They will sense the quiet power you carry. They will feel drawn to your stillness, curious about your clarity. And in your presence, their own awakening will begin. You become the lighthouse, not by shouting at ships, but by shining steadily through every storm. And when you forget, because you will, you return. You realign. You remember that the Kybalion is not a destination. It is a tuning fork, a compass, a mirror, a gentle whisper from the universe that says, you are not separate. You never were. You are one with the all, and the all is one with you. So live as one who knows. And in doing so, you will become the greatest secret of all, the truth that cannot be written, only felt. The Hermetic path does not end. It spirals inward, deeper and higher. And with every turn, you discover that you are not just walking the path. You are the path.